Now, I also have to understand, John, why are you working with Russian state media?
Oh, because I've got 5 kids and nobody's beaten a path to my door to give me work. You know, this is all part of the overall plan. It's, again, my lawyer said, this isn't about John Kiriakou. This is bigger.
So for people who don't understand Andy's question, John has been hosting a radio show for a number of years for RT.
7 years now.
7 years.
Sputnik Radio.
Sputnik Radio.
Yeah, Sputnik Radio. The government, I think, or the agency maybe, would have been perfectly happy if I starved to death from lack of work or ended up at McDonald's. And I worked hard to rebuild my life. The only people who offered me a job were the Russians. And when they first offered me this job, I turned it down. And then 6 months later, they came back and said, we'd really like to offer you this radio show. And I said, you know, the only way that I would do this is if I were free to say anything I wanted and to talk about any issue I wanted. And they said, done. And I said, yeah, but I would want to be able to criticize even Vladimir Putin. Done. And I said, would you put that in writing in the contract? And they said, yes. And they did. And I'll give you an example. On the day of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, I opened the show by saying that I unequivocally condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and I call for Russian forces to depart Ukraine immediately. I criticize. I'll give you another example. Do you remember in York, England, I'm going to say 5 years ago, a Russian dissident and his daughter were poisoned with Novichok? We were doing a story on it, and my co-host said, well, you know, it could have been the Ukrainians in a false flag operation. It could have been the Russian mafia. I said it was the KGB or whatever they're calling themselves. Now, they've been poisoning people since the 50s. This is what the Russians do. They poison people. Of course it was the Russian government. So they let me say anything I want. I've never, ever received any pushback, and I make a handsome living. Like I've always said, if CNN's got an offer, or MSNBC, or even Fox, I'm on Fox at least every other week. I'm all ears. But, 5 kids, 3 of whom still need to get through college, I make no apologies.
So then when you became a sworn officer of the United States, what was your intention? Was your intention to make the United States, to protect and expand the superiority of the United States, or was it something else? Did you think you were making a better planet? Because you have to know that by affiliating your name with Russian state media, you might get to say anything you want, but that doesn't mean that's what goes to air. When it gets translated into Russian, it can be whatever they want it to be.
It's a live show. It's in English.
It's an internet show, right?
It's terrestrial.
Also broadcast.
But they're going to have the rights to make out of it whatever they want to make out of it. And your name and your affiliation that is exactly the foundation for how Russian covert influence operations happen.
Aw, poor CIA. There's a former CIA guy working for the Russians. He may do some damage to the American government. Fuck the American government. What have they done for me? What have they done for my children?
Do you really
violate my rights?
Do you really not know the answer to that?
Come on, man. It was the CIA that put me in prison. What in the world do I owe the CIA?
It was your decisions that put you in prison.
It was the CIA's law-breaking that put me in prison.
It was your choice to highlight the CIA's law-breaking to media that put you in prison.
There we go. So we're in agreement then.
Your children's, they live every day under the protection of the United States. They have all the benefits of American citizens. You get to enjoy. You're here on an American podcast. You flew on an American airline. You're staying in an American protected hotel.
What do you think my children's memories are?
The police officers driving around the streets right now, all of these people are contributing to the freedoms that you have.
Oh, wow.
All of them.
Wow.
And you're sitting here saying...
You're a true believer.
I'm a true believer in the fact that we have to serve the American dream. We have to serve the American purpose. That's what we're here to do.
And that's exactly what I'm doing by opposing the American government.
You don't oppose the American government by making yourself a voice for Russian state media.
Why not?
Because you're not talking out about the American government, first of all. What you're talking out about is Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
No, I talk about the American government every single day.
So whoever you're speaking to,
Yeah.
you are giving credibility and authority and you're loaning all of your hard work to Russian media for a paycheck.
I don't see how that's a problem.
Because if you didn't come from CIA, they wouldn't care about you.
So
you're borrowing the authority of CIA. That's what makes you valuable to Russian media.
no, I'm able to expose crimes that I witnessed in the CIA. Sure. And maybe that gives me a little bit more
John
cachet.
Kiriakou, separate of CIA, would not be of interest to Russian media. So what makes John Kiriakou...
That's not true. That's not true. I have a dozen colleagues who have been sort of leaders in their field, have nothing to do with the CIA, that also host shows because they bring something to the table.
They're leaders in their field.
Yeah, okay. So I was one of the government's leading experts on the Middle East.
Without the government, you wouldn't be
If I had been at
interest.
the State Department or if I had been in academia, I'd still be an expert on the Middle East.
You're pulling everything from government, man.
So what?
Andy,
I don't see how you think I owe the government
I'm not
something
saying you
here.
owe the government anything. I'm just saying that the ideals that you must have had in 1984,
Yeah.
1889,
89, yeah.
you must have compromised on those ideals. You must have at some point.
I'm a patriot.
Isn't questioning the government and holding the government accountable something that the United States was founded on?
I don't know the answer to that.
Of course it is.
How?
Isn't that in the Constitution?
I don't know the answer to that either. Can somebody flag where there's any mention of individual accountability to the government? Because I'm pretty sure that's why we are a representative democracy. It is our representatives who are supposed to do that, not us. What we're supposed to do is be really fucking good at what we do and vote in meaningful representatives to represent the constituents in all forms of government. It is not our job to meddle in government. It is also not the government's job to meddle in our economic contributions to the government, unless we violate a crime or violate a law and somehow otherwise ostracize us. But we're not supposed to. That's why we have representation in the Senate and in the House.